Good evening, everyone. Welcome to
Recording in progress.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Swanton Village Board of Trustees for Monday, January 30th, 2023. First order of business is a pledge of allegiance to our flag. If you could join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comment. We don't have anybody on Zoom.
We do not.
This fellow is going to start on the other, right? So.
She's having trouble logging in.
Lynn is?
No, Allison.
Allison?
So is she on? Or
She's
we are ready for
having trouble logging on.
You know what ID she's on?
Is it Zoom? Are we on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, if we just bear with us for a minute, we're trying to connect with our guest to speaker on Zoom. While we're doing that, item number 5, approve and accept the minutes for our Monday, January 9th, 2023 meeting. What's your pleasure with the minutes?
I'll move they be approved as printed, sorry.
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve and accept the minutes from Monday, January 9th as printed. Any discussion?
No, sir.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carried unanimously. Item number 6, approve and accept our village warrants through Thursday, January 26th, 2023. And your pleasure on the warrants.
I move that they be approved.
And I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve and accept the village warrants through Thursday, January 26th. Any questions?
Just one. On warrant number 1. Where did I mark it? 86232 Cogsdale.
Electrical. Cogsdale.
That's the software. Lynn, do you want to weigh in on that? Could you hear Trustee Paxman's question?
Yeah, that's the annual support for the software that we use for our financial and billing.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
It's the only one I had.
That's it?
Yep, fine.
Gene? Okay. Okay, that being said, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion is carried unanimously. Are we ready for, or
I'm
is
waiting
Ken?
for her to send me an email and I'll copy her on our meeting invite so that she'll get the link.
Okay.
Chief, Chief.
Okay, we can, okay, while we're waiting to tie in with our guest this evening, I think we'll jump to our police chief for police department update. Chief Sullivan?
Okay.
Looks
You
like
see, you'll have quite the packet of information in front of you because
Let's say you looks pretty busy.
we missed November, and so what you'll see for November is what I've typically provided is for the village exclusively, and then the village and the town, and then also December for the village, and then the village and the town. There are some things that that came up while I was putting this together that was pretty interesting. There is a discrepancy in, if you look at traffic stops, so for example, in December for the village, it indicates 17 traffic stops. It's because it's pulling the data using the incident call type, and that's, so there were 17 incidents flagged as traffic stops in the call types, but yet if you look at the actual ticket report, which is page 4, you'll see that it indicates there were 26 car stops. If you look at the individual incident numbers and/or incidents, I should say more accurately, incidents where tickets were issued. So those could have been a number of different things, whether it be crashes and that sort of thing that officers responded to and issued tickets. But that's why there's that discrepancy. In looking at this for December, you'll see that 9 tickets were issued and 17 warnings were issued, and there was 1 arrest. The other thing of interest, which I had on one of these, maybe it was November, is, and maybe I'll see if we want to stay looking at December for the village, just to stay consistent here. If you look at violation street name, I found an anomaly, and I don't know why this is occurring. I'll have to get some more clarity from Crosswinds, who created the CAT-RMS system. But on some of the violation street names, for some reason, we found that it was populating the operator's home address in that location. So you'll see some locations in St. Albans and other places. Now, some are accurate because we're doing Operation Stone Garden and sharp details that take us outside of the town and or the village, and we're still engaging in traffic enforcement. But I didn't really see any rhyme or reason as to why it was pulling that data and populating that field with some of these, with the operator address information rather than the actual location of the stop. But if you go into the CAT-RMS system and you're looking at the CAT-RMS system, it shows exactly where the location of the stop was.
Okay.
So you may see some discrepancies there in violation street names.
Right, I see that. I see some of them.
Yeah, I mean, and again, some of them are accurate because we're not just doing traffic enforcement in the village and the town, but we're doing some traffic enforcement outside depending on the detail.
That's
So-
interesting.
So looking at December, I'll stay with December. We responded to 107 incidents. Again, we've covered the traffic stops, and there were 20 arrests in the month of December. If you look at the village and the town combined for that month, 183 incidents, 30 traffic stop incidents. There were 40 actual incidents where traffic enforcement, that involved traffic enforcement. 21 tickets were issued, 22 warnings, and 1 arrest related to traffic, and 23 just arrests total in the month of December between both the village and the town. And again, on the front there, you'll see the breakdown of the 10 most common call types. In November, we had for the village itself 85 incidents, 5 traffic stops, but again, looking at the SR agency ticket report, there are 5 traffic stops, but there are 13 incidents that involve traffic enforcement. 7 tickets were issued, 8 warnings, and 5 arrests for the village in the month of November. And then looking at the village and the town combined, we responded to 171 incidents, 17 actual traffic stop incidents, and 29 incidents where traffic enforcement occurred, 14 tickets issued, 20 warnings, and 6 arrests in the month of November.
Why the increase, do you think? Or the decrease, if you wish, in November?
In November, I think we were really, and I would have to look at month to month, but I think we were trending upward a little bit. As far as what the decrease in incidents overall, because we were trending upward. If you look at November to December, we were at 171 incidents if you're looking at the village and the town, and we went up to 183. So there's a slight increase. If you're looking at December, there were 40 incidents where traffic enforcement occurred and 29 in November. So again, trending upward a little bit from November to December. We have been very busy the last couple months of the year. And then you'll see what I tried to put together for you was a little more in-depth analysis document that's typed up. It looks like this,
Yeah,
which is a summary of the year. So in total, Swanton Village Police handled a call volume of 2,352 incidents in 2022. This was down approximately 18% from 2,884 in 2021. Now, that decrease in call volume, I believe, is most likely due to the fact that we changed CAT RMS systems, and so call type nomenclature changed. And I think part of it is officers getting used to that. There was a substantial number of property checks that didn't exist in the new system when we first rolled it out. Even though officers were doing that, we were flagging some of those incidents as directed patrol. But my understanding is in the old system, it automatically populated property checks. And so it's an interesting thing to try to do something like that where it populates pending incidents so that officers then are reminded to go out and check those properties and engage in those property checks. But I think that's primarily why the call volume was down overall, was that difference in nomenclature. We responded to 1,307 incidents in the village and 725 incidents in the town. And looking specifically at traffic enforcement, SVPD performed 401 traffic stops total, stopping 147 vehicles in the village and issuing 122 warnings and 49 tickets. Approximately 83% of the traffic stops in the village resulted in a warning, while 33% resulted in a ticket. There is some overlap in these percentage calculations, mainly because you can issue multiple tickets or warnings in any given traffic stop, depending on the violations associated with that enforcement action. SVPD stopped 195 vehicles in the town, issuing 153 warnings and 47 tickets. Approximately 78% of the stops in the town resulted in a warning, while 24% resulted in a ticket. Then aggregating all of the data for the village and the town, which is 342 traffic stops total, 80% of those traffic stops resulted in warnings and 28% resulted in tickets. And then the other additional stops above that 342 up to 401 were stops that occurred outside the village or the town, again associated with those details, sharp details or Operation Stone Garden. And that's why you see the difference in that number. But for the sake of comparison, I found it somewhat amusing that we engaged in one more traffic stop than the Burlington Police Department did for the entire year. SVPD wrote $29,604 worth of tickets, with $11,721 worth of tickets in the village and $13,807 in the town. Swanton Village police officers made 15 arrests for operation after suspension, or what we commonly call DLS. There were 9 arrests for DLS in the village and 6 arrests in the town. We also made 16 DUI arrests. There were 10 arrests for DUI in the village and 6 arrests for DUI in the town. Officers also made 1 arrest for DUI criminal refusal and an arrest for ignition interlock restricted license. Approximately 8% of traffic stops resulted in an arrest, given 401 traffic stops total, resulting in 33 total arrests. And then something that we did in Burlington was, obviously we were very concerned with race data and looking at how race data applied to law enforcement. So race data associated with traffic enforcement show SVPD officers issued 298 warnings to white operators and 108 tickets to white operators. Again, keeping in mind that operators may be issued multiple warnings and tickets in one traffic stop, so it doesn't necessarily, those numbers don't necessarily reflect individual operators, but total numbers. This data indicates that 26.6 of documented enforcement against white operators was tickets versus 73.4% warnings. SVPD stopped 2 black operators, issuing 1 operator 2 tickets and the other operator receiving a warning. And because those numbers are so small, I don't feel like it's statistically significant given the small data set there. Now, some jurisdictions like Burlington use population data as a metric to attempt to determine if there's racial disparity in enforcement action. Burlington uses both census data and crash data because we felt in Burlington like crash data was a more accurate representation of the public, because it's just people get involved, or the driving public, because people get into crashes in an equal manner. It should more or less represent the driving population, right, as far as race goes. So that even though the census data was a little lower than 8%, the crash data in Burlington indicated 8% of operators were black. I've always felt that this is kind of a flawed metric for looking at whether or not disparity exists in law enforcement, because regardless of race, law enforcement is required to respond to behavior. Okay, we need reasonable suspicion that a civil violation has occurred or possibly a criminal violation to engage in a traffic stop and temporarily seize somebody. We need probable cause to arrest someone and take away their liberty, at least temporarily. So those are legal standards that law enforcement officers are always applying. So if we were blindly just engaging with the public, then perhaps census data should be the metric that we use. But I've always felt like that's a flawed metric in applying to law enforcement, and I don't know that it's necessarily accurate in gauging or not whether there's disparity. Certainly if there's numbers that are really concerning, like off the charts in one direction, I think it would be a good indicator. But again, just due to the nature of law enforcement in general, that we have to follow legal standards in engaging with the public. Again, I don't feel like census data is a great indicator of disparity. And then if there is disparity, seeing whether or not there's bias and enforcement action on the part of law enforcement. But given the fact that was kind of where Burlington is, and that it generally statewide, that's where the state is, I did the same thing and tried to find some population data. And one data set that I was able to locate for Swanton indicates that 94.8% of the population is white, 1.1% is Hispanic. It had 0% black, which I know is not true because within my first few weeks last year, I ran into somebody who was living in Swanton, who I knew from my time in Burlington, and who we recognized each other from prior interactions. So I don't know where the 0% came from, but I don't feel like that's an accurate number. 1.1% American Indian, 0.7% Asian, and 3.3% multiracial. I found census data for Franklin County indicates 91.1% of the population is white, 0.7% of the population is black, 1% American Indian or Native Indigenous is another terminology used, 0.6% Asian, 0.6% other race, 5.9% multiracial. And when using crash data specific to Swanton from 2022 as a measure of population, we find Swanton is 97.7% white, 1.2% black, 1.2% Native American or Native Indigenous. There appears to be no disparity in traffic enforcement by Swanton officers when using population data as a metric and applying it to our enforcement over the past year. Looking at arrests is the next section that I have. Swanton Village Police Department officers made 157 arrests, and more accurately, it's charges, right? So one individual may have multiple charges. Again, 157 arrests does not indicate individuals necessarily over the course of 2022. Approximately 7% of all incidents resulted in an arrest. The 157 criminal charges represent 119 individuals. 83% were issued citations to appear in court. So a citation is essentially an invitation to appear in court. That's the way the state has been trending. And generally, Vermont has a very complex set of criminal procedure laws called Rule 3, where it gives strict guidelines as to when you can attempt to actually lodge somebody for a criminal violation. But the majority of the time, we are issuing them a citation to appear in court at a later date. So again, 83% were issued citations to appear in court. 7% of our arrests were lodged, which means they were actually brought to a correctional facility. 2% were requests for arrest warrants, and 8% were arrests on court order warrants, meaning the judge already reviewed the case and then issued a warrant. So race data associated with arrests is as follows. Out of those 119 total arrests, 113 were white, 2 black, 4 unknown. This yields 95% of arrestees were white, 1.6 black, and 3.3% unknown. Therefore, there appears to be no racial disparity in the arrests when using population data, again, as the metric, applying it to our statistics from 2022. Looking at use of force, SVPD officers used force in 20 incidents in 2022. Thus, officers used force in 0.85% of the incidents they responded to, which is lower than the national average of 1.8% of incidents from a sample of 60 million police-civilian contacts. And now when I say use of force, you need to understand that there's a broad spectrum. The majority of use of force is very, very low-level use of force. Okay, it's usually handheld holds and just maybe placing somebody in handcuffs, that sort of thing, is very low-level uses of force. Rather than sometimes when people hear the terminology use of force, they're imagining some greater degree of force being used. But really, anything above compliant handcuffing requires an officer to complete a use of force report. Race data indicates no bias on the part of SBPD officers, as 2 of the 20 incidents involve force on black people. And the context, again, of these incidents is important, so I've included that here. One incident involved a black male who was involved in a drug investigation. This was an externally generated motor vehicle stop where officers were monitoring a location for drug activity. The vehicle was stopped after failing to maintain its lane under suspicion of possible DUI. The officers did not know the race of the operator at the time of observing the operation. It was nighttime. When the operator was stopped, he subsequently ran from officers into the woods, and officers pursued and had to use a small amount of force to detain the male, who was found to be in possession of 115 grams of cocaine base or crack cocaine and a large sum of money. The other incident involved an alleged possible kidnapping, and a vehicle was stopped and I will add that that was outside of our patrol area at the time. The incident was down on Maquam Shore, and it was during the daytime when that call came in, so we were assisting Vermont State Police. But it was a possible kidnapping. A vehicle was stopped based on an accurate description of the vehicle leaving the immediate area, and due to the allegation, officers performed a high-risk motor vehicle stop that requires officers, again, there's no discretion due to the way we train officers, to point their firearms for their own protection at the occupants of the vehicle, and as the occupants are ordered from the vehicle in a controlled manner and then placed in custody for investigative purposes. In this incident, 3 of the vehicle occupants were black and 1 was white. Subjects suffered minor injuries in 3 of the 20 use of force incidents, while officers also suffered minor injury in 2 of the 3 incidents where civilians suffered injuries. All 3 subjects who suffered minor injury were white. The context of these incidents were an intoxicated male involved in a domestic disturbance who threatened to shoot police with a compound bow and then fought with officers attempting to take him into custody. I will say it was a very tense incident, and our officers responded in a very professional manner because the subject was threatening actively to shoot them with a compound bow, which, if you're familiar with compound bows, they're really quite a dangerous weapon. And then once the subject dropped the compound bow, he fought with officers while they were attempting to take him into custody. I will add that that was an agency assist also to Vermont State Police, where we were assisting them. A female subject on a different incident who had an arrest warrant issued by the court, who resisted the officer and ran from him when he attempted to arrest her. And then they both ended up falling to the ground while he was taking custody of the female. Again, both of them suffered minor injuries. And finally, an intoxicated male subject who resisted officers when they attempted to place him into protective custody during a domestic disturbance. Moving on to the section of drug and criminal enforcement. The Swanton Village Police Department executed 7 search warrants over the course of 2022, which led to criminal charges and the recovery of evidence related to drug trafficking, fraud, and property crime related to drug activity. The first such warrant was in the area of known drug trafficking, but was related to an aggravated assault. Officers hit 2 apartments simultaneously with the assistance from DMV enforcement and Vermont State Police. Officers executed a search warrant at a residence concluding, and this is a different search warrant. Officers executed a search warrant at a residence concluding an 8-month-long fraud and identity theft investigation where the victim was defrauded of thousands of dollars over several months. This search yielded evidence definitively linking the suspect to the crime. A third example was officers executed a search warrant related to a fraud case that was directly related to local drug activity. This search warrant yielded evidence definitively linking the suspect to the crime, and the suspect confessed when interviewed. A fourth example was officers executed a search warrant at the same location based off of observations of drug activity during the first search warrant. I will say it was pretty egregious, the amount of drug paraphernalia that was in that residence. This was a known local drug location in the village, and the second search warrant led to the arrest of a male from Springfield, Massachusetts for distribution of crack or base cocaine. Officers executed another search warrant at the Europa Motel, locating evidence of a fraud directly related to drug activity leading to an arrest in that case. Officers also executed a search warrant on a vehicle after locating 115 grams of crack cocaine on the operator, who has a history of distributing narcotics in Franklin County. And now I know that there's been a lot of questions over the course of the year of the homicide that occurred in the beginning of February last year. So what I've included is basically an overview, and again, I've been very cautious as to the amount of information that I've shared because this is a prosecution by the U.S. Attorney's Office. They do not share information readily. They're secret investigations as that prosecution moves forward. So if you look at this section and also in the village report that will be coming out shortly, you will see information that is essentially directly quoted from the U.S. Attorney's Office in their press releases. But I've put some of that together for you here in this section on the homicides for your review.
There's been further news perhaps, has there, in the last week or so?
There was, let me see, and again, I want to be very careful, but the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Vermont, issued a press release on January 11, 2023, stating that Dominic Troop, 36 of Colchester, was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to distribute cocaine base, 1 count of aiding and abetting the use of a firearm during and in relation to a drug conspiracy, 1 count of conspiring to commit robbery of drugs and money by threat of force, and 1 count of possession with intent to distribute cocaine base. The press release goes on stating that the first 3 counts against Troop relate to the February 2nd, 22 shooting and death of Elijah Oliver in Swanton, Vermont. The United States asserts that Troop was the primary source of supply for crack cocaine being sold out of a residence on River Street in Swanton, and that Oliver was a rival Swanton drug dealer. Troop and others implemented a plan to carry out an armed robbery of Oliver, seeking to steal drugs and money, and during the attempted robbery, Oliver was shot and killed. And I will say that our officers did an exemplary job, with the initial part of this investigation being called out early in the morning on February 2nd, 2022 to respond to this scene. The first responding officers were one of our officers and a Border Patrol agent, and MVR was already on scene. And this, due to the complex nature of this investigation, the Bureau of Criminal Investigations with Vermont State Police was called in to take over, because on its face I could tell from our initial contact with the occupants of the dwelling that this was going to require a great deal of extensive follow-up and investigation that, quite frankly, we just don't have the manpower to dedicate to something like that when we also are responsible for responding to calls for service. Mm-hmm. But all that is here.
Thanks. A lot of stuff, yeah.
And I will add also, I mean, I'm getting a little bit ahead of it, but our guys have been very busy this month also executing multiple search warrants here within the last couple weeks. And so there's been a lot of hours. I'm essentially running a uniform drug unit at this point in Swanton, but the guys are doing great work. It's a great team, and we're having or demonstrating some great results addressing some of the drug issues in Swanton.
Good, that's good to
We'll
hear.
send our thank yous to them. And
Yeah.
it doesn't go unnoticed, we really do appreciate it.
Unbelievable.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for the chief?
Not today.
Very good work. Busy couple of months, at least a couple of months. So. Okay, thank you. So are we ready for our guests?
We are ready. Allison, as long as you can hear me, if you're ready to proceed. I don't know
Yeah.
who's going to kick it off, but
Yeah. I can just
Okay.
give a few remarks and then I'll pass it off to Allison quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name's Kent Henderson. I live in Georgia Center. I'm the longtime chair of the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. We've been working around for almost 20 years now, around the northern arm of Northern Lake Champlain. In 2013, our organization was responsible for creating the stormwater management plan for the town of Swanton. And Reggie's a very familiar face. We've worked on projects together that were done in that plan. We noticed a couple of years ago that we had left the shoreline off of the plans. We actually did 9 of those plans around the county. And we'd left the shoreline off, so we regrouped, and last year we completed a stormwater assessment and erosion assessment plan for the Swanton and also the Highgate shoreline. And part of that assessment was to come up with one 30% design for a best management practice that we could get installed, and we would go out and seek funding for to get installed, with the idea that it'd be at least a good demonstration project. Along the shoreline, as you know, there are many concerned citizens, and they're wanting to know what can be done to help clean up the lake, and there are things that can be done on their property. So that's one of the things that our assessment found, along with a lot of projects that could be done along the municipal roads in that area. But what we did, we zeroed in on the 30% design at the town beach. And then we were informed that that is in the jurisdiction of the trustees of the village. And so my previous project coordinator and I met with Reggie at the town beach. I don't know if you remember. I remember it was a hot afternoon.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, and we sat at the picnic table and we talked about it and what an idea would be. And so in the meantime, we went ahead and we applied to see if we could get funding for that project, and we were successful. And so the Lake Champlain Basin Program has given us an award for $44,431 for a project that the name of it is the Swanton Beach Stormwater Design and Implementation. And it's to treat stormwater runoff from the parking lot and then run off a little bit further down on the road using a roadside sand filter down where the Lassiter Road runs into the Lakeshore Road. And the idea is that it is located in a very visible place. A lot of residents use that area. We're going to include it in our educational outreach. We will put signs up there with the idea that residents will see that and think about it on their own properties. And then the last bit of piece to these projects is the permitting, since it is, close to the lake, and then to come up with operations and management. That'll come later in our work plan. We will come to the town or to the village, whoever has the resources, and talk about the management of these simple projects. But that's all I want to do, is just give you an introduction. Allison is our project coordinator. Parker Eversalt is our project coordinator assistant. He's with us as a doing service with us as an AmeriCorps member from the DEC Eco project. Allison is the project coordinator. She's the one that wrote up this work plan, and so I'd like to turn this over to her to give you a better description of the actual project.
Okay, thank you. So,
And
go
folks
ahead,
hear me
Allison.
okay?
Yes,
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Happy to be with you. Sorry, I live in Burlington, so it would have been a bit of a late drive home in the snow, so thank you for letting me join via Zoom. So, like Kent mentioned, we have a preliminary engineering design for this project. It's a two-part project. The first part is a rain garden or a bioretention system that is proposed to be located at the Swanton Town Beach. So just below the parking lot, if anyone is familiar with that area, I guess south of the parking lot is where that bioretention piece has been proposed to go. And then the second portion is a roadside sand filter, which has been designed to go at the Lancier and Lake Street intersection. And so combined, these practices have the potential to filter almost a pound of phosphorus out of Lake Champlain each year. And as we all know, the blue-green algae problems that everyone has experience in McQuallen Bay. The main driver of that is phosphorus. And so our goal, our organization's mission is to reduce phosphorus loading, and this is part of the steps to get us there. I think the goal of tonight is to just make you all aware that this is a proposed project. We currently have funding to move forward with a final engineering design, and we actually also have implementation funds already granted to us. So this is probably going to be a 2-year project, should everything go as planned. We are expecting to finish the final design by this fall, which will include all of the permitting, a possible wetland delineation, because our engineers found a potential wetland area adjacent to the location. It will also require operations and maintenance agreements and things like that, so there's a bit of some regulatory pieces that we need to sort out as a part of the final design process. And then moving into the field season of 2024, probably anytime between March and August, we have proposed to start implementation, so the construction of these 2 projects. And I think that's really the basis of it. It is the Lake Champlain Basin Program that is funding our work to do this. And I think we're more than happy to take any questions from the trustees. I think it was maybe an oversight on our part that we didn't come and present earlier. I know that Kent had a conversation with Reggie earlier, probably a year or 2 ago. And so we just want to make sure, because this is the village is operating the beach property. We want to make everyone aware of this, and hopefully you all will be, updated as the project pursues, and any concerns that come up, we are more than happy to take questions and anything like that.
Just one, Adam Paxman, village trustee. You had stated that this would clean up 1 pound of phosphorus, that's it?
1 pound of phosphorus annually, yeah,
Just 1 pound?
that's correct.
It only covers a half acre. It's a very small area. When you talk about farmers and the work that they're doing on their farmland, the practices that they are, putting thousands and thousands of dollars at, those are projects that they will take out 20 or 30 pounds. So this is just a small project. This is not going to solve, the lake is not magically going to turn over because of this project. But the point is if you go up all around the lake shore, you'll find along the lake shore, it's just about all developed now around Lake Champlain. And if we could save 1 pound of phosphorus on every lakeshore residence as we go around the lake, it would add up. You'd be talking about half tons, and you've got to start someplace. So the idea is that this will have an educational impact to where this may be the one that starts, and then you may see 4 or 5 more of these in the next 5 years. I'll compare it to cover crops, if you're familiar with farming. And it used to be that the farm fields were all bare, and all winter long. The farmers would chop their corn, and then the ground would sit brown all winter long, and then it would be impacted by rainfall and snowmelt. And now the farmers have adopted cover cropping. And it used to be that field that was cover crop really stood out. That's really strange. Why is that field there all green this winter? Well, now when you drive around in the winter time, now it's that bare field that stands out. Because the farmers have seen this and they've adopted these good practices, and we're hoping that some of these ideas like the sand filter and the rain guard that we want to put in, that people will see this and understand and get familiar with it and understand what it does for the lake.
Thank you.
I think, and you bring up a great point that when we're talking about phosphorus reductions, it's a 10,000 piece puzzle. Phosphorus comes from every single activity we do all over the land. And our study area was confined to that 250 feet from the shoreline. That's the protected shoreline area. And like Ken mentioned, unfortunately, something like 90% of Lake Champlain's shoreline is privately held. And so what we're hoping is that this is a starting point, is that this is a public-facing project that we can include signage at about the benefits of green stormwater infrastructure, and that this small project, because it is a small project, is just one piece in that puzzle. And it's a very, very difficult puzzle to put together. So our hope is that, yes, this is one small step, and then also we can inspire others to take action as well.
Hello, this is Parker Eversole. I would just like to add that due to the proximity of this project to Lakeshore, we're pretty certain that that phosphorus would be getting into the lake versus some of the other projects we have are, further upstream. So can pretty much guarantee that that is going to be 1 pound of phosphorus that won't get into the lake, which is always helpful.
Is there any dangers of phosphorus coming from the other side of the lake to our side?
There are many
Any
sources.
other?
Yeah,
Sorry.
there are many sources. The New York side of the lake, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm just trying to remember the actual stats. For the Vermont land mass that goes into the lake is like 65 or 70% of the whole land mass that goes into the lake. I think the New York side is 25 or 30, and then the remainder is on the Quebec side. And so this what we're doing here, of course, won't take that into account. But I can tell you another grant that we just got, we're working on the Rock River in Highgate. And I wasn't really cognizant of this until about a week ago. And that's a 37-mile Rock River, and 20 miles is in Canada.
Yeah.
And I lost track of that. And all the work that we've done on the Highgate side with the Highgate farmers, working on those great projects. But we've never really accounted for what's happening on the other side. Well, we just got this new grant, and we're gonna sit down Thursday and pick out our collection sites. And I've got a site right where the rock leaves the United States, and then where it comes back along the gas line road in Highgate. So, we're gonna start taking that into account. We do have I've got a good close relationship with another water quality group in Quebec, similar to ours, and just getting to meet the folks in New York. There's work being done on both sides though, and that's what Lake Champlain Basin Program does, is they service projects on both sides. So.
Thank you, appreciate the info.
So Allison, Neil Spear, Village President, the sand filter, the phase 2 that you're talking about, is that on town property or is that private property?
So it's the majority of the project is in the road right of way, but it is possible that part of the project will be located on private property. That's the one at the intersection of those two roads. So we plan, before doing any kind of additional final design specifications, to get consent from that landowner, confirmation that they're okay with this project going in and potentially encroaching slightly onto their property.
What's that, the James Road?
I think it's last.
Lanier Road.
Oh, Lanier. Oh,
Lanier,
okay.
It's okay.
I'm from the Midwest, that's why.
Oh,
It's okay.
That's why I
Lasner too.
It's all right.
Oh, okay.
You have to be French.
Yeah. I've only lived here 45 years.
So the sand filter will basically do the same as the others, reduce the phosphorus flow into the lake?
That's correct. The goal is during really big rainstorms that these features will allow the stormwater to collect to filter into the ground or be filtered by plants or sand in this case, to stop phosphorus from entering into the lake.
They're designed to hold the water for about an 18-hour period. I've had the question many times, are we making a mosquito trap? And we aren't. The idea is the water will filter through and, you know, will trap the sediment that way. And, you know, they've got a 10 to 30-year design life. You don't really know until you start using it and see how much sediment comes out. I personally don't think these are high sediment areas, but I do think that it really increases the velocity. So, that's the idea.
Yeah.
One question from me, Gene the Bombardier trustee. You capture the phosphorus in the sand and eventually 10, 20 years from now, you replace the sand?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Just to let the
There is
public
a
know.
operations and maintenance protocol for all of these practices that is part of the process of getting them designed, is to come up with a plan about how these will be maintained.
What's,
Okay,
can I ask a question?
thanks.
What's the frequency of maintenance in
So
time period?
for both of them, I think for the first year, it's to inspect after large rainstorms to ensure that they're draining properly, because there really shouldn't be any water left after 48 hours. And then in the 10-year period, I think it is doing some minimal maintenance about clearing any debris that builds up, specifically leaves, I think is a problem in the fall. But I think it's keeping an eye on it and making sure that any clearing that needs to be done. I'm reading the operations and maintenance that is part of both of these, but I think that's, and to inspect it for any damage that animals have caused. Burrowing animals can cause it to not work as effectively as it's designed.
Okay.
One other question, your budget, you got a $44,000 grant, and the price tag is 47. Where's the difference coming from?
It's my match, my volunteer, I'm a volunteer.
Okay,
That extra money is my volunteer match.
okay.
So there's,
Yeah, and that total project budget includes the final design and permitting fees and everything like that, in addition to all of the construction costs.
Cool.
And the designing an educational sign, getting that built, that kind of thing, that's all included.
So is there an analysis of 1 pound of phosphorus disperses how much volume of water into Lake Champlain?
I'm
not sure what you
throw
mean by
that,
disperses.
So if you have 1 pound of phosphorus into the lake, how far does that travel?
It all contributes to what's referred to as the total maximum daily load. This is the amount of phosphorus going into the lake that we're trying to reduce down to a level that it's not a limiting nutrient that causes algae blooms. So in terms of water displacement, I'm not sure if that's something we necessarily look at. A lot of times the phosphorus is bound into sediments. So an eroding stream might have phosphorus in the soil that gets sent down the stream and into the lake. So that's one example.
Okay, right to its suspension.
so,
All right, thank you.
so,
Another
go ahead.
possible chemical question, and if the phosphate is not pure, it's a calcium salt or a sodium salt, do you have ideas, obviously information of what form of is it bound to calcium, potassium, that sort of thing? And And they're pretty water soluble. Now, going back to his question, if there weren't any plants out there in the lake, that would eventually find its way out to the Bristol River. Am I not correct?
Well, let's see, I wish that my son was here. My son's a chemical engineer. And he's always said, Dad, if you have a tough chemical question, let me know. And I can get back to you with a really in-depth chemical engineer answer to this. But what I will tell you is, what we test the water for is the dissolved phosphorus. And that's the free phosphorus. That's what needs to be at the end of a root so a plant can grow. Phosphorus is an essential mineral for life. And so it's not a poison, it's not a toxin. It's just overabundant in our system and causes these algal blooms because there's an overabundance of it. Most of the phosphorus in the system is bound to these clay soils we have, to this sediment. And the problem in a shallow bay like the Missisquoi Bay or St. Albans Bay or the flats, the mud flats out in front of North Laquam Shore. You know, there are several feet thick of clay sediment that has come down our waterways, you know, over the years, and there's phosphorus bound to that. And I think it's something to the order, like when the sampling that we do of the water at the town beach, that the amount of free phosphorus that was in those water samples we were taking, it's only like 1.5%, 2% is free phosphorus. The rest of it is bound to the sediment. And that will sit in the lake. And then there'll be a chemical reaction as that free phosphorus does finally escape down the Richelieu.
Yeah,
There's more on the bottom of that lake ready to replenish it.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
And just to reference the other chemical compounds we were talking about, I mean, anytime that water sits and gets infiltrated through the groundwater, it's gonna be cleaned and absorbed to other sediments and not make it to the lake. So that's gonna have a co-benefit there. If it's, you know, whether it's road salt or something else, that's gonna be helpful for the water quality, even if it isn't phosphorus.
Got it. So far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tonight is just simply information as to what's going on? Is there anything you need from us?
I think that we already got a letter of support when we applied for the grant.
Yeah, we did.
We've actually been in contact quite a while. I think we wanted to meet, but there were some budget things that you and the town were both dealing with. And this meeting, I think we actually tried to have this meeting back in November or late October. And so at that time, yeah, we were looking for a letter of support. Well, we got the award. So
You're good
it's
to
in
go.
place, and we're not coming asking you for money. But we will be asked, but as it goes on, we will be trying to find a partner in the maintenance of it.
Yeah.
So that'll be our next ask.
Yeah.
But we'll have more information for you.
And that's a year plus down the road anyway at this point.
The study, the assessment will go on this spring and summer. We will get bids for contractors, next year. That'll be a year from now.
Yeah.
We'll put it out to bid, and it'll be constructed in the summer of 2024.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think it's a great idea, especially the location. It's right on the beach where the problem is, and it'll show up, like you're saying, Allison, that it's real visible there, and if the pound of phosphorus is gonna make a difference, it'll make a difference right there where it shows the most. So, and like you say, hopefully it will catch on along the lake shore, and we can keep going with it, so. But,
Yeah, I got September 2020, we were having conversations about that area.
2020? So,
It's been a while,
Oh,
Ken.
that's right.
in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, but, yeah, I think it's a great idea, and if we can do any more to help you guys out, let us know. And, we appreciate you coming and filling us in
Yep.
tonight, so.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Are you gonna do the same with the town, or?
Yes, I think their board meeting's a week from tomorrow.
Yes,
So, yeah, we're scheduled to work with them also.
okay. Yeah, because, they're getting the complaints from the shoreline down there, big time, so, yeah. So, good luck with the project, and thank you for updating us tonight, and, so,
Thank you so much.
okay,
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good
have a
evening.
good one.
Thanks, Ken.
Do you want this back, Ken?
No, in fact, I can leave that work plan. I thought there was,
I have another email I can send them.
Yeah, I can forward,
What you have-
I can forward the packet to them.
You've got it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
okay, yeah, thank you. I was thinking the filter was down on James Road, further down McQuam Shore. This is back from the beach.
well, we found 65 areas along the municipal road where you could put in best management practices.
Like where the culverts come from the, fields, yeah.
And we found, there were like 5 other projects that we could have selected to do this 30% design on. But this one we thought would have the most impact,
Yeah,
education.
the most,
That was the thing that
yeah,
sold us on
and the most visible. So, get the point across, hopefully, so, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good night. I just read their letter of support.
I'll send this one.
Okay,
Maybe it was last summer.
next item, on the agenda is renew and acknowledge the fourth quarter SQRP for 2022.
I've read it and I moved.
That's Chris's.
Yeah, right.
He's not here tonight, but he's gonna miss this report. He always likes to
Actually,
make a motion to approve it.
I think I'll make a motion to accept it.
Yes.
It looks like a good report,
second.
we send it on.
Say that it has been approved and accepted.
I reviewed it.
So you're making the motion,
I
Adam,
am.
you're seconding it? Okay, the
sir.
motion's been made and seconded to approve and acknowledge our fourth quarter SQRP report. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay. We did it, Chris. So. Item number 10, approve and adopt the 2023 budget. And I see we have hopefully a final from Lynn here.
And Lynn is with us.
Lynn is
Yes.
with us, yes. So would
So
you,
for this budget compared to the last one you saw, there's really there's a couple of changes. On the sewer department, the budget increase for expenses about $3,100. And that's on pages 8 through 10. And it affected salaries, FICA, and retirement. We adjusted a salary. And so that's that impact. So it shows, we do have a slight profit budgeted, so it just reduced that slight profit a little bit.
Yeah, I'll look for it later.
And then the second change is the police department budget, which is pages 17 and 18. For this, we had an employee that changed plans for their health insurance, which caused a $9,600 increase in the budget.
ooh,
That's acceptable. That's what we offer.
And if you go to page 20, These are your proposed tax rates.
That didn't change, did it?
So the general fund is pretty much staying the same. It's got a proposed tax rate of 0.0843, which is slightly less than what we had last year. The fire department is a proposed tax rate of 0.0532, which is a little bit up. That's rounding though, because we're raising the same amount in taxes. The police department is the one that's increasing the most, and that is a proposed tax rate of 0.5168, up from 0.4655, so that's going up about 5 cents. And then the highway fund has a proposed tax rate of 0.3484, up from 0.3427. So that's going up slightly. Overall, we're looking at an increase in the tax rate of 0.0542, which on a $250,000 home is $135.38.
Seems reasonable to me.
Yep.
I think without any other discussion, I'll make the motion that we approve the document as presented.
And no second.
Is there any questions on the tax rate before I go to the final page?
No? It's clear.
Lynn, I think we've already got a motion to approve it.
Well, if you look on page 21 also, that is the proposed equipment projects for 2023.
Ooh.
That's fine, we need to do it.
So the big hit in this, it does look like a large dollar amount. We have a couple large projects, one being AMI
Yep,
for over $800,000, and the other being the bridge repair. Other than that, it's kind of normal, standard stuff that we do with replacements and stuff.
Linda, 831 that's in there, is that considering the grant?
Yes, that is our cost.
50%.
That's net of the grant. I
Okay.
did just notice the highway, the bridge repair, that number actually should be lower. That should be around that $200,000 mark.
Right.
I didn't adjust it when I adjusted it in the budget.
it's clear.
Okay. Any questions for Lynn? No?
Just a comment. Thanks for the work.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yep, good job, Lynn.
Thanks.
So, not to cut you off, but, we already have a motion and a second to approve your budget.
Perfect.
So,
You do.
I don't think we have to have any more discussion if we already have it, a motion and a second.
Good.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve and adopt our 2023 proposed budget. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. So,
Thank you.
next item on the agenda is to approve and sign the 2023 village warning. And I will read that for all that are listening. Our Village of Swanton annual warning. The legal voters of the Village of Swanton are hereby warned and notified to meet at the Swanton Village Complex, 121st Street, Swanton, Vermont, on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, at 7 a.m. to vote on the articles set forth. All articles are to be voted by Australian ballot. The polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. Article number 1, to elect from the legal voters of said village the following officers: president for a 1-year term, trustee for a 3-year term, clerk for a 1-year term, and collector of taxes for a 1-year term. Article number 2, shall the voters of the Village of Swanton appropriate $138,985 for the operation and maintenance of the general fund for 2023. Article number 3, shall the voters of the Village of Swanton appropriate $575,035 for the operation and maintenance of the Highway Department for 2023. Article number 4, shall the voters of the Village of Swanton appropriate $87,861 for the operation and maintenance of the Fire Department for 2023. Article number 5, shall the voters of the Village of Swanton appropriate $852,990 for the operation and maintenance of the Police Department for 2023. Article number 6, shall the voters of the Village of Swanton authorize the Board of Trustees to place surplus funds in the Police Department anticipated to be $61,200 into a capital fund for future purchases. Article number 7, shall the voters of the Village of Swanton authorize the Board of Trustees to place surplus funds in the General Department anticipated to be $11,900 into a capital fund for future municipal complex and park upgrades. And Article number 8, shall the voters of the Village of Swanton authorize the Board of Trustees to place surplus funds in the Fire Department anticipated to be $10,250 into a capital fund for future purchases. The legal voters of the Village of Swanton are further notified that an informational meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in person and via Zoom for the purpose of explaining all the budget terms to the voters. Anyone desiring to participate and listen in on the meeting by cell or landline phone should dial 646-558-8656 and enter the meeting ID number 828-6169-4256 when prompted, and announce your name. To join the Zoom meeting online on a computer, click on the link printed.
Yes,
I'm not going to read all that.
I couldn't anyway.
That is on our website anyways, the Zoom link. Dated Swanton, Vermont, this 30th day of January 2023. Neil Spear, President, Chris Leach, Trustee, Eugene LeBombard, Trustee, and Adam Paxman, Trustee. Received and filed on the 30th day of January 2023 by the village clerk. You have heard the warning. What is your pleasure this evening?
I'll move that we approve the warning as printed.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to sign and approve the village warning for 2023. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion's carried. We can sign the document. Next item on the agenda, any other necessary business? Anybody like to bring anything up, or?
One question, are we looking at some new construction in the village for housing?
There was, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was a petition for DRB, yeah, for a property, and it's still in design.
Okay.
There's a 3 duplex subdivision.
In the wetlands area?
Yep,
Okay.
In the village?
yep. It's off Laurel Street.
In the back.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
boy, sorry.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Okay,
Just wanted to make sure I was hearing what I was hearing.
and if the powers would move, there's a possibility of South River Street too.
Oh, I know. Got a
But
prime location
we
there.
won't go there any further, so.
I have one quick question.
Bill, would you like to say something?
No, sir.
No.
Reg, you gave us a lot of information about the port of entry, and I tried to think what the L and LPOE means. POE, I understand. What's the L for? What does that stand for?
No idea.
You know, and I Googled it and then looked other places. Nobody knows what that means.
LPOE.
Well, port of entry's
Local
easy.
port of entry? Or
Yeah.
local?
Yeah, local.
Or is it
Local?
local?
Yeah.
Is it?
maybe,
I'm pretty sure it's local point of entry.
could be. Thank you. That makes sense. Thanks. Told you it
Thank
was
you,
simple.
thank you, Mr. Google.
You're welcome. That'll be $6.99.
Yeah.
I thought it was 1 cent.
And I do take PayPal.
Okay, any other necessary business this evening? If not, we have a request for executive session to discuss real estate and contracts. So, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session to discuss real estate and contracts. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's carried unanimously. We are in executive session.